As a trigger warning, it touches upon our author's very real experience with mental health and particularly eating disorders. So if those topics are very sensitive for you, then please feel free to come back in a few minutes. Otherwise, I hope that you find a story that resonates with you, because it's a happy story in which our author, dear Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, journeys from the material west to the spiritual east and finds a lot of healing and transformation. Here we begin chapter 2, called We Have to Go to India. This is the spring/summer of 1996. India, Jim said. We have to go to India. I believe Jim is her husband at the time. Oh God, I thought, standing in our kitchen in the suburb of Millbrae, west of San Francisco International Airport, conveniently located between Palo Alto, where I was getting my doctorate in pediatric neuropsychology, and San Francisco, where Jim was getting his master's in East-West psychology. I was holding a bowl of extra firm tofu chunks and homemade teriyaki sauce ready for skewering and barbecuing. Seriously? Memories of our year in Ecuador flashed back. Children in the burn unit of the hospital where I'd volunteered. A facility that might have been created for a Twilight Zone episode. Babies in diapers overflowing with feces screaming while nurses sat by polishing their fingernails and watching telenovelas, soap operas, on a small black and white TV with rabbit ear antennas. Beautiful young children burned by exploding gas canisters, their moms cooked dinner on, or from falling into vats of boiling water, children electrocuted while reaching playfully to touch exposed electrical lines. Jim and I had traveled to Ecuador the year after I graduated from Stanford, so he could teach English. An opportunity for him to travel, explore, and serve. He's a year older than me, and he wanted to join the Peace Corps after his graduation. Instead, he stayed back to wait for me to finish my last year. All my previous travel had been in Europe. Vacations with my parents, summers in Switzerland, a trip to France, my last year of high school. Traveling in the third world hadn't even occurred to me. Over lunch breaks in high school, my friends and I would weave fantasies of romance on Greek isles, lying on white sand beaches while modern Adonaisis rubbed tanning oil on our backs. We never gave a thought to poorer parts of the world. But I was in love with Jim and aware of the sacrifice he'd made by postponing his stint with the Peace Corps to wait for me. Plus, I had no intermediate plans after graduation and didn't know what I wanted to do. A year abroad teaching and exploring sounded like an adventure. Teaching, I discovered, came incredibly easily. I could draft lesson plans on the school bus in the morning or on Sunday evenings for the week ahead. I loved my classes and the students, but I had too much free time. We returned home each afternoon by 3, and I grew tired of backgammon afternoons with the din of honking horns in Quito's traffic. One day, while walking through our neighborhood, I discovered the local state-run children's hospital and learned that they needed volunteers in the burn unit. I soon began filling my afternoon changing diapers and rocking young children to sleep. I barely spoke Spanish, so I couldn't communicate verbally, but it didn't matter. The children craved only touch. Staph infections were rampant, and each day I arrived to learn that 3 or 4 children had died the night before. "I don't think you can take this," Jim told me one night as I sobbed over yet more deaths. Other than my students at the school and our weekend trips to Baños, a quaint mountain town named after its hot springs, I had a few fond memories from our year in Quito. Now, India? I didn't know anything about India, other than how much I loved Indian food. I had been a vegetarian since age 15, and Indian restaurants were always my first choice. I didn't have to grill waiters in languages I don't speak. Indians understood vegetarianism. There was no stealth chicken stock, beef bouillon cubes, or oyster sauce in the soups or stews, no eggs in the pasta or naan. But there was an Indian restaurant on our corner in Millbrae, so why go to India? Jim was on a spiritual quest. We often went to meet gurus visiting the San Francisco Bay Area, and he had a small shrine in our apartment where he meditated every morning. To me, the only enjoyable part about the excursions to meet the gurus was the food they served. Sweet, milky chai in styrofoam cups, along with crispy samosas with tangy mango chutney. The singing and prayers didn't move me. I sat through them, trying to connect with the music, but really waiting for it to end so we can go and eat the samosas, drink the chai, and go home. As I got ready to go to class each morning, Jim sat at his shrine, meditating to Indian chants playing on a nearby cassette. The music was nice, but I never thought of closing my eyes or singing along. The shrine Jim had created, populated with pictures of Indian masters, incense, and paraphernalia, did not entice me to join him. "This is spirituality," Jim explained. "I'm going to get enlightened." Since reading Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance in college, Jim had immersed himself in the pursuit of expanding his consciousness. He spent afternoons doing past life regressions and practicing lucid dreaming, and weekends doing holotropic breathwork to access higher states of consciousness. If there was one thing that interested me, it was Andrew Harvey's mellifluous. I've not heard this word before, but it's a great one. Mellifluous voice speaking about Rumi or Ramakrishna. I had a crush on Andrew and wished he would just keep speaking into my heart forever. None of the rest touched me. I wanted to be inspired and enlightened as much as Jim did, but the actual desire for it just didn't come. Jim explained that shrines and chanting and gurus are the stuff spirituality is made of, and we came to a shared understanding that I simply wasn't spiritual. So, India? After my brain's instinctive rebellion against suffering in another poor and distant country, I assuaged myself with the idea of going to Pune to study yoga with BKS Iyengar. I was already practicing yoga. I loved studying Iyengar yoga in San Francisco, but I knew the rules. You had to have attained a level of proficiency far greater than mine to study with Iyengar in Pune, so that was off the table. Jim remained adamant. We had to go to India. These are nice short chapters. That's the end of chapter 2 already. So thank you for listening. We'll explore where this backstory leads us in our next reading session, particularly towards the end of our live streams. Thank you for listening. Namaste.